Okay, so we have our book club today. We have Terry Sidford, the author, with us. And the book is Truth, Courage, Love. I always get it mixed up. Is that right?
Yep, that's it.
I
Yes.
got it. I want to mix them up. Truth, Courage, Love, because that's how she wrote the book in those
Yes.
sections, which was
Yes.
very interesting. And we have Carol, and Carol has a book that she's getting ready to publish. But Carol, she
Exciting.
laughs. Carol has also edited um, two of my books. So she's a gem of a friend. That's all I can say. So before you wrote this book, you had another book. Was it a book, Permission to Have Courage?
It's 100 hearts spelled out.
Oh, it's 100 Hearts, and it's stories from 100 women.
Women based on a survey I gathered from 100 women
Wow.
on the subject of courage.
Wow. That's
Mhm.
good. Carol doesn't realize that she's going to be on YouTube later and she's going to be jumping up and down on YouTube. So,
Oh, I was just trying to get a pencil.
that's okay. So Terry is also a motivational speaker, an author. She's been a life coach since 1998, right?
Mhm.
So, all right. So with your book, now a lot of times people think childhood drama has to be really horrific, but that's not true, as you show in your book. Whatever the upset is in your life as a child can have a traumatic effect on you, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
And talk about how it started, your family.
My childhood.
Yeah, the first part of your book.
Yes, I grew up in Southern California, and in the beginning, it looked like the perfect 1970s family situation. I had two loving parents, we had three adorable children, and everything seemed great. And we had a house with a pool, and life was good. Until one day, I came home from school. I was in first grade, and I had my favorite little plaid dress on, and I changed out of my play clothes, and I'm running my room, and I hear my parents yelling, and I'd never heard them talk to each other like that, yet alone yell.
Yeah.
And then they started to argue. And from there, things kind of escalated to where my mom started to drink heavily.
Mm.
First starting, first she hit it, became blatant about it. And then my dad moved out, leaving the siblings and myself in the sole custody of an alcoholic mother. And back then it was just, you could not take children away from their mother.
Right.
And we should have been taken away at that point.
Right,
But,
right.
and then one night, things got really bad, and we felt, my sister's 5 years older than me, and we felt very unsafe.
Mhm.
My brother was at the boys club, luckily, I guess. And we called our dad and said, Dad, we're going to start walking to your house. Come pick us up.
Mm.
We grabbed whatever we could fit in our pillowcases that we could carry with us, and we walked 30 minutes to my dad's house, and we never
Wow.
returned.
Wow.
We never lived with my mother again.
And how old are you at that time?
7.
7.
Mhm.
You know, the thing of it is, when you mention alcoholism, I was what they call a functional alcoholic. I was
A lot of them. Yes.
really, but I think
A lot of out there.
Mhm.
it's the self-will. I'm on the self-will and survival skills, but I was a single mother with 2 children. And I drank, but I didn't think I had a problem because I drank after work. I didn't drink all day long. I never fell down drunk. I never had a DUI. But sometimes when you're left alone like that with an alcoholic mother, I could see how it could really, really be bad. I understand. Yeah. And
Yeah,
then,
she was in a bad, like, she would get at that point in her life when she drank, she couldn't stop, until
yeah,
and she
yeah.
became she was a wonderful person, wonderful, loving person. But when she drank, she was very angry and mean and yelled. And so, it was very, very
You hear
uncomfortable.
that story a lot, though. That's so true.
Yes,
It's
yes.
so true. My dad was Jekyll and Hyde, you know.
Mhm. Yes,
Um,
yes. Completely
you hear it
different
all the
people.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's talk more about that. So you went to live with your dad, and how long were you with your dad?
The
Two
rest
years.
of my life till I was 18.
Okay. And how was he as a father?
He was very well. I just gave a talk this week and we were talking about that he was the good one, um, but he was always very, very loving and kind. And that was very consistent.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
He was also a product of the 60s / 70s kind of hippie-ish
Yes.
metaphysical movement in Southern California.
Yeah.
And so, like when I was 14, my brother had already moved out. And we had a wonderful, loving grandmother. And that's my father's mother.
Mhm.
And we would go to her house whenever we had a chance because she was our stable person in our life.
Mhm.
So I was left with my dad. So I was about 14. And, he decided he had a living girlfriend and
Mhm.
we're all going to go to some hot springs in the mountains of Northern California. So we get in the camper and we hop in and we drive 12 hours. And I'm just so excited, it's going to be so much fun. And then we get there and he said, we're here. I open up the drapes. I look outside and there's naked people. There's naked people everywhere.
Oh my God. And no
Yes.
warning, like he didn't
Oh,
explain it to you
no.
ahead of time.
No, and that was my first step of courage, actually. I learned how to be courageous at that point because I said, fine, you can just bring me food. I'll stay in the camper the entire time. 14.
I
That's a
know,
very,
like, and not to even give you a heads up. That's
no.
Carol, were you able to read some of the book?
I read the whole thing. I read it in I read it in a day and a half, I think.
Okay, well, let's hear your perspective
put it
on the
down.
book.
I enjoyed it. First of all, I love Southern California. We lived there for a year and a half, and the only reason we don't live there is because my husband insisted on coming back to Philadelphia. So
Yes.
Mhm.
I'm in Philadelphia. Well,
Yes.
I'm outside of Philadelphia, but
Suburbia. Mhm.
I mean, I miss California something terribly. And before I read your book a while ago, a couple of years ago, I read a book written by the guy from the Beach Boys, Mike Love. It's called Good Vibrations. And that was a great description of being a teenager in California during the surf era and all that stuff. And I was very envious of that.
Mhm.
And I am in love with Southern Utah. Southern Utah is it's the second most beautiful place I've ever seen.
Mhm.
So, and I understand, I have a little bit of knowledge of Mormonism and I understand them, and I don't agree with them most of the time, but I know that they're good people and they have good hearts. And so, I enjoyed the book entirely. I could relate to a couple things. I laughed about your father because, I knew people like that.
Yes.
And it
We
was
were those people sometimes.
sometimes I was
I
never
mean,
I was never really those people, but I looked like those people a
yeah.
lot.
Well, you got married young, you went to college,
I
you got
did.
married young.
I did, yeah.
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 But you talk about alcohol. I went to college in Binghamton, New York, and at the time the drinking age was 18.
Mm-hmm.
I did plenty of drinking. Plenty.
Yes. Yes.
And it was I must have inherited this from my dad because nobody has that alcohol gene in my father's family, but my mother's family is filled with it. So, but
You never had a problem with it, Carol, right?
not
I mean,
really.
you're not an alcoholic. You don't consider yourself.
I don't consider myself that. The only thing I drink is wine. I gave up everything but wine.
Yeah.
Because I never acquired a taste for beer, although very lately I had one that was absolutely fantastic and I couldn't believe it. But
It's okay.
I just beer and wine and nothing else. And I don't drink anything else.
But you kind of like always had that awareness because you had alcoholic parents or family members. So you kind of,
my father would drink beer after work every day, but he never got violent or anything like that.
Yeah.
My mother drank a lot of beer and, they were beer drinkers. And then when she saw me, with this almost hobby that I had with wine, she says, "You're going to become a wino." Oh, I can see myself sitting under a bridge with a paper bag, right?
No.
Yeah. No.
Terry, I guess Terry. So Terry, like the beginning of your book, you said you felt like you were in the back seat and that other people were driving your life. Right? Is that correct? Yeah. So, how long did that go on?
Well, when you're an adult children or when you're a child of an alcoholic, you think that it's all your fault.
Mhm.
And so, I had a lot of shame and lots of insecurities. I struggled in school. It just went on and on and on. So my self-esteem was so low that, of course, I thought everybody else knew the answer for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so until I actually didn't finish high school, I went to live with my sister because my self-esteem was just in the tank. I would, have boyfriends to kind of pretend like that was I they were the people that gave me self-esteem just to have a boyfriend. And, I always maintained a job though, interesting enough. I always had a job. Um, I did get my GED but I left high school early.
Mhm.
And finally, I think it was in my early 20s. My grandmother was our saving grace. She lived in Utah. My brother moved there. He's 3 years older than I am, to go help her with her health food store in Provo, Utah.
Mhm.
And when I left high school, I started, I thought, well, I've got my GED. I can start community college part-time. And my dad's girlfriend was living with us still. And I just, I got to do something different. So I moved up to Utah, lived with my brother, and started to go to school part-time, had a job. And that's, I'm trying to think oh no, that was before the defining moment. so, and then I started dating a con artist boyfriend, and I lost everything to my name. And that's probably when things went to the lowest of lows. And that was the defining moment that I realized that I needed a little help,
Mhm.
that I needed to find someone to talk to.
Yeah.
And I really took back my power though in that moment, when I realized this man could take everything emotionally and physically and materially from me, but it could never take away my soul. And I
Right.
had to find out who I was at that moment.
That is so true, though. It's like in my book, the first one, Raised by Wolves, Trapped by Demons, and I was always in situations where I was being controlled or people were trying to control me, including
Mhm.
parents, including husbands, etc.
Yes, yes.
And I kept that behavior up well into my 30s and just dealt with each situation as it came, took as much as I could, and then I would like break free. And then I get right back into another controlling marriage.
You're like, how did I get here?
And and then icing on the cake, I think, is when I married my first husband again. And in between, I had 2 children with the other guy. And I married him because I knew he'd protect me from my second husband, who was physically abusive. And even though we were divorced, he was still attacking me every time he could. So it's crazy what you do. And then talking about that soul, the moment that defining moment, I remember like the last time I kicked him out, Jack. I had kicked him out many times because
His name was Jack.
Jack. He was a cheater. Was your guy a Jack too?
Yes. My
I
con artist was
remember
a
that.
Jack.
Yeah.
But was his real name Jack?
Jack. So when I finally threw him out this last time, I had enough, and I just knew that I wasn't capable of loving another person because I didn't love myself. That makes sense?
Yes.
It took me a long time. I was well into my 30s, you know.
I always thought everybody knew more than me. Everybody. Everybody in the world knew more than me. I was the idiot.
So you listened to whatever they told you, believed.
I thought, well, they must know more than I do. You know.
Mhm.
What a way. So then you had your defining moment in the book. We talk about that. And you had to clarify, I'm sure, what was important to you. And then you had to go through a rough period because you're learning now to be yourself, your true self, let's say, right?
Yes. And that's where the truth comes in my book.
See, you've got to keep it like that. Courage, truth, love.
Yes. Yes. And, wow, I'm so, even, I wish I didn't have to go through that to learn that, but it's invaluable lesson I learned. It connected to me. It connected myself to my true self. I didn't know what I was capable until I hit rock bottom. And I still that's probably the most defining moment in my entire life.
Mhm.
It's with me every day that I'm the only one who gets to decide how my story shapes me. I'm the only one who gets to decide the path of my journey and the true answers within, regardless of
Right.
who I think is smarter or more knowledgeable or has done better than I have. And it's been my guiding light,
Yeah.
and it's really taken me.
The
I've made
truth.
decisions ever since, and
Yeah,
who I call my life, everything.
I like that part of the book, maybe for me the most because I relate so much to finding out your truth and having to go through a lot of garbage first and pain
Yes.
and
Yes.
darkness. But you also right now you counsel people, right?
Yes. Yes.
Are you
I'm
like
a
a life
life
coach or
coach,
life coach? Okay.
professional and yeah, career or personal, but mostly personal.
And what do you think they struggle with the most people, when they come to you?
Their values, their passions, and their well, I'd say purpose. Purpose.
That's
Uh,
it.
when we connect and find our purpose, our true purpose in life, it lights us up. It's like our lifeline, and you can't do without it.
That's right.
And when you're not living that purpose
Right.
in life, you
Right.
feel empty. You feel lack of life inside.
Yeah.
And when we really step into our purpose and our passions in life, we make a difference. We're fulfilling our purpose here on earth for some reason, whatever that is. And then it's a ripple effect. We affect everyone around us. And it's important. It's important to live the full potential. It really is. And to find out what that is,
Yes.
no matter what's happened to us.
Exactly. I didn't write my book till I was like 70. I mean, really. But I did,
High
but
five.
high
Yeah.
five, right? But I did help women before that because when I got sober, I was a sponsor for many, many years. And I sponsored a lot of women. And
Mm.
all the pain and bad things I went through, now they were invaluable because I could relate to them. I could tell them what I did, what I did wrong, and what I did right. And also, what I felt a lot of times was um, they felt seen and they felt that I was not judging them. That is so important, don't you think? Yeah. Yeah.
So
So,
important. So important. So many people are hiding their stories. And
mhm.
I gave a talk again this week, and I had a lot of people come up after saying, I have the same story, but I'm hiding it. And, you know, but I have a dream, I'm afraid if I go towards my dream, they're going to find out this secret in my life. Right.
Exactly. No,
Yes.
that's why when I wrote my book, my memoir, and I didn't really hold anything back unless it would hurt someone, like my
Yes.
children. Like I kind of kept my children in the back there. They were in the background of the book because I did not want to talk. It wasn't their book. It wasn't about them. And I just laid it all out. And it's like, if you like it, fine. If you don't like it, that's okay too, because it has a good ending. I find the light. Carol, of course, you read the book, right? You see comparisons in my story and Terry's as far
Oh,
as,
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
It seemed like you had an awful lot of obstacles in your way.
mhm,
Unbelievable obstacles, and I remember you saying in the book that your father you wanted to join the military, and your father said, no, 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 you can't do that. I remember that attitude. That was an attitude. It
girls
wasn't,
can't go into
yeah.
the military. And now they're trying to keep us out again. I don't know if you know what's going on in Washington. It's so crazy. They're actually trying to keep women out of the military. And my one daughter's a Marine. So she's like, what? It's
Yeah.
just crazy right now. We're going a little backwards, I think. But what we went through in our decades, we had our own problems with discrimination and not being treated respectfully. Women were less than, and there's still a lot of that around. So let's get to the third part of the book. So now we get to love, right? And how did that happen?
This is the most interesting part of my book. And when I speak about my book, a lot of people, I talk about forgiveness. And courage opens your heart up to love
Mhm.
and forgiveness. It takes courage to do that. And a lot of people say, well, how do you forgive someone that's done something unforgivable? Well, it's to release you from the energy the negative energy associated with it, and take back your power. And so you can return to love. I grew up with a lot of love in my heart. It was my innate nature, thank goodness. But I also wore my heart out on my sleeve, and I was naive and I would get hurt. I had to learn how to protect myself. But I will never, another defining moment is around this whole con artist boyfriend. When I was at the bottom of my, the lowest of lows, I was working at an ophthalmology office, and I absolutely loved my patients when I'd come in and do eye exams. Just loved them. They would fill me up. They had so many stories. And after that happened, I would go in and I felt nothing. Absolutely. I couldn't feel love. I couldn't feel compassion. I could care less. And it scared me. It really scared me.
Yeah.
And every day. And I tried every single day until one day, a month later, Emma walks in. There's this cute little patent leather black bag, purple hair. And she looked at me and said, "How are you, honey, or sweetheart?" And she just was, everything was about me. And
she got through the wall.
She did. I felt this warmth in my heart, and it pulsed through my body. And I wanted to bawl. And I knew that day I would never let anything keep me from loving.
When we're hurt very badly, and I talk about this in my book, like myself, I built a wall. My heart was covered in ice.
Yes.
And it took me years and years and years. And I will be very honest, I still don't feel I am as compassionate as I could be. Okay. Because my husband, he cries at every sad movie. He tears up so easy. And I just sit there and go, okay, it's sad, but you're crying. And you're like, but that's because that wall, in my case, I call it ice, took a long time to melt. And I still have not forgiven the second husband, the one that abused me physically and wouldn't let me go. He stalked me. And I can't say I'm trying. I'm not angry anymore at him. I don't hate him anymore. But to actually say I've forgiven him, I'm not quite there.
And that's understandable. And that was the biggest topic of my speech this week, is a lot of people struggling with this concept. And they said, well, how, and I explain it that with the con artist boyfriend, I remember I had a choice to try to call the police and, try to get them to arrest him. And then he had some of my things, blah, blah, blah. But I decided that it was more important for me to move on and out-create the situation so that he didn't get any kind of satisfaction or anything from what he has done to me. I wanted to be the best person I could be, despite, I don't want to give him any power. And so I just had to, in my mind, forgive him and know that life was going to take care of him, right? And there are times, just so I can release myself of the negative energy and then let go and move on and get my back. But there's times we do need to make people accountable for their actions, but we shouldn't let, I guess I'm trying to say, do everything in our power not to let it hold us down or hold us back.
Exactly, I agree.
That way you give them the power over us and like, no, they don't deserve it.
No, they don't deserve it. And that's it. I've been in his company and just been very cordial and, So are you writing another book? Another book coming out?
I have not thought of another book. A lot of people, it's funny, you say no, like, oh no, I'm good. But then it gets in your blood and
it'll come. You'll get the inspiration. So do you have a website that we can go to?
It's Terry, Terry, Sidford, SIDFORD.com. TerrySidford.com.
Thank you so much for coming. And I'm sure we'll do another podcast because we have a lot of topics we could talk about. And Carol, thank you for coming. And I know I can always count on you.
You can.
Okay, so so I'll see you again soon, all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again.
Right.
Bye.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.